In today's video, I'm going to be sharing 6 favorite DIYs using Dollar Tree items of various kinds. I hope that you enjoy this. Let's get to it. We are going to be using lots of Dollar Tree items in today's video, but starting off, we're going to be using this piece that I got from the Dollar General for only $1. I thought this little bird was going to be a really fun piece to DIY with, so I'm going to start off by using my heat gun to help me get the label off. It just makes it a little bit easier. And then I'm going to pry off the flower from the front. Now, this was in with like a nail, and so when I pulled off the flower, there was a piece sticking up. So I just pounded that in with my hammer so that it wouldn't be, protruding at all. And then I decided I wanted to take the paper off. You could sand it, or you could just try painting over it or put paper over it. But for me, I wanted to get a clean slate. So I'm dampening it with some water and then a paper towel, moistening that really good, and then just letting that sit. And then you just scrape it off and repeat as needed. I've shared that many times, so we're going to skip over that. I'm going to paint this bird with a little textured paint. So I'm taking some Waverly chalk paint in the color white and some baking soda and mixing that together with my chippy brush. You can make this as thick as you want or as thin as you want, just based on the texture that you are going for. And then the chippy brush, using the chippy brush, I should say, we're just going to stipple that across the bird. We're going to do the front and the back with this. Now, I've heard, I know some friends that use salt wash, which is a paint additive. It's actually designed for this, and that gives a little bit of a stiffer texture. I find that the baking soda works fine for me, but I will say that I wanted to make sure to not go on too thick, because as I stood this up to dry, because I did both sides at the same time, it kind of wanted to drop a little bit, so I kind of just kept stippling that a couple times as it dried. So I hope that's making sense, but you could also just do one side at a time. All right, so we're gonna let that completely dry, and then I'm gonna take these paint inlays, and I got some tips about the paint inlays from the last, I think it was the last video or a recent video, and that is to trim as close to the design as possible so that you don't have any outline from the paper. I don't know that this would have been a problem on this one because we're going to use this paint inlay on the textured paint, but I went ahead and kind of fussy cutted this and did the best I could. And then I'm just spraying that with my spray bottle. Then I'm going to go over where I'm going to put the paint inlays with some paint. No baking soda here, just a little bit of paint to lay the paint inlays in there. Now, I was expecting it to not give maybe as good of coverage because of the textured, but I wanted it to look rustic anyway, and you're going to see we're going to kind of make it look that way even more. But the paint inlay did work really good even on the textured surface. Dabbing that with my paper towel to press it in. We'll do that in a couple spots, and then once that dries, dampening it once again with with water and a paper towel, and then peeling off our inlays. And I'm going to repeat that a couple times in different places on this bird. And I probably could have gotten it to transfer better if I'd pressed in more, but I really just wanted this to be kind of rough, roughly in there because I wanted it to be rustic. So we're going to do that in a couple different places, and you do that however you would want to do. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps me out a ton. It lets me know that you're enjoying my video, but it also lets YouTube know that you're enjoying my video. And when they know that you enjoy my video, it makes them more likely to share my video with others. So it's very important in the YouTube algorithm. All right, so heading back to our project, we're done with the paint inlays. I let that all dry completely and fully, and now I'm going in with a stencil brush and a very, very little antique wax, and we're going to go over the edges. And I'm going over pretty much the whole thing, but I'm just building on the, I didn't want it to go too heavy at first. On the back side, I'm going to go across the outside and the beak, because where I'm going to display this, you may see it from the back side. And then from the front, I just kind of went all over. You'll see that in just a second. And then once everything was fully dry, I'm sealing this in with a good coat of Mod Podge. I wanted to seal in the paint inlay, and I wanted to seal in that textured paint that we had. That'll just give a nice firm outer coat or top coat and keep everything sitting pretty. And this one was so fun. I love how this came out. I made it look a little bit more rustic and dirty. I love both sides. I don't know if there's a favorite here. I like them both, but let me know what you guys think about this one. We are going to start off with an old music page, and you could either find scrapbook paper that looks like this or found some old music sheet sheet music or print something off online. But I found one that I thought was going to be perfect for this DIY. The hymn is, oh gosh, hang on a second. Okay, this song is called All Things Bright and Beautiful, and it talks about the creatures of the earth. So I thought it would, you'll see, I think it thought it was going to go well. So what I'm doing is wanting to tear this into pieces so that I can fit it onto the piece we're going to be decoupaging on. And what I'm doing is just with a paintbrush and a little bit of water, running that along the places where I want to tear it. And that way there's a tear instead of a harsh cut line. I just think it looks better, or looks more of what I'm wanting to do. Anyways, this metal house is the base. This is from the Dollar Tree. They've had these for a long time. They even have different shapes, but I had this one already, so this is what I'm going with. And I decided to, I don't know that all of these steps were necessary, but I didn't want to regret having a base coat in case any of the underside peeked through. Now, I did decide it'd be easier to paint this by taking it off of the base. Just a couple of screws. You don't have to do that. Could just put some painter's tape, but I just decided to. So I'm painting this with some white paint, and then I'm going to go in with a layer of antique wax. I probably would have just done like an ivory if I had any of that paint on hand, but I didn't. I just didn't want the metal to be peeking through, but with all of the added details that I added, I don't think it would be, I just said added twice. I don't think it would have been a problem. But this is what I decided to do with just working with what I had in front of me. So we're giving it a base coat of white and then going over it with some antique wax. I know that the antique wax isn't really supposed to be used as paint, and it does have a different surface, so it could peel off depending on, you know, how you're using it, but it's fine. It worked. So once that was pretty dry, I don't think the antique wax was totally set, to be perfectly honest, but I just did a very light touch with my paintbrush, so I didn't pick any of that up. We're just going over this with some Mod Podge. And so we're going to do one strip at a time. I, off camera, had fiddled with these pieces of paper to kind of figure out what I needed to do to make them all fit. I did want them to also be somewhat readable, to like go in order. So you're going to see what I do at the top, because it fit pretty good here on the bottom, but then the shape of the piece, because it's a house, changes. So I'm mainly just putting a little bit of Mod Podge underneath, actually a lot of bit of Mod Podge, and getting it in place, putting a little bit over the top of the edges where needed. I decided to put something underneath it so that it wasn't angled down. And then we will, I think I did Mod Podge the whole thing in the end, but here I'm just worried, you know, focusing on the bottom part. And so the first lines were talking about all creatures, or all things bright and beautiful. Now, I already forgot the title of the song, oh my word. But the words at the beginning were the ones I wanted to make sure you could see. And so I tore it up and pieced it together so that even though they were on different lines on the paper, I brought them together so that you could still read everything and it still kind of looked cohesive. So I hope that makes sense. This is a rustic piece, so to me, it all ends up working pretty good. And then there was a couple bare spots, and I just took scrap pieces of the page that didn't have any writing on them and filled them in. And then we're going to let that dry completely. And then I'm going to, you could Mod Podge over the top. I don't actually think I did this time, which is kind of weird because I normally do. But I'm going to take some sandpaper. This is a handy little finger sander. I do go in with an actual sheet of sandpaper in a second too. And this works really well to get the edges off. And you just want to sand away. You don't want to sand towards you because you want to lift the paper up. And I did just, folded that to get into the area where the chimney was. And we're just going to clean up all of the edges there. Once the excess paper is gone, I'm going in with some antique wax. And I'm going to start by putting a little bit around the perimeter of the house to kind of highlight it, also cover up any areas where you could maybe see the house underneath. And then I'm going to go across the whole thing. And this is going to vary. I started going a little bit for the places where the pages met, but I didn't want there to just be lines, so I kind of smudged it, dabbed it with my paper towel, and then I wanted there to be heavier spots and then less heavy spots because I wanted this to just look old. So now that that is all done, we are taking this resin piece of this bird. My friend poured these for me. I haven't actually worked with resin yet, but she was so kind to send me a bunch of pieces that she had poured for me. And we're going to paint it first with white, which maybe wasn't necessary. I don't know. And then I'm going to go in really heavy with the antique wax once the white paint is dry and wipe it back with a paper towel. And it's going to really highlight all of the details on this little bird. If you don't have resin, you could do some clay, air dry clay in a mold, or you could use an embellishment that you could find. Check your craft stores and check in like areas of the craft stores that maybe you wouldn't think you would be finding stuff. I love finding pieces that and then using them maybe in a way that they're not intended to be used. So just kind of something to think about. Sometimes if you have a chance, sorry, I'm stumbling over my words. Take time to walk down every aisle of a craft store, just every once in a while. I know I don't have the time to do that every time, but every once in a while it's fun to just see what I can find that maybe I would not have thought to like pick that item if I was just going and looking for craft items. I'm going to take this Gorilla household glue and use that to attach this. I just thought that would work best, but there's probably a lot of different glues you could use. And I'm just rubbing it with my finger. Just could use a paintbrush too, to the edges. I didn't want it oozing out, but I wanted to make sure that the whole piece was getting plenty of contact. And I held that down. I think I might have even put something on top to just help hold it until it dried. And then I'm just going to use those little screws that were in there before and just put our piece back together. Let me know what you guys think of this. I love this. This might be my favorite from this video, but I'd love to hear what you guys think about it. And of course you could add a pop of color with the bird if you wanted, but I was just kind of going for this old, more rustic look. And I am very pleased with how it came out. I hope you like it as well and are inspired to create something of your own. This is one of those things that is so simple. It's hard to call it a DIY, but I did do it myself, so it is a DIY. This ceramic plate stand came from the Dollar Tree, and I wanted to pull off the kickstand because we're not going to use this as something that stands up. And then I went to pull off the back, and it came off easily. Not like easily like it was falling apart, but when I went to pull on it, it did come off pretty easily. And then I'm just going to replace the bottom with this sheet of cork. This comes from the Dollar Tree as well. I just wanted to have a nicer looking base. I will say I wish I had done better with my circle. I feel like I should have just used a glass or something to cut it out because it was kind of hard because I was tracing like the bottom part of the plate. I don't know. It's not a big deal. Nobody's really going to see it, but I traced out and cut out what's supposed to be a circle, and this has a really strong adhesive, but because I wanted to be a little bit extra, I did add on a little bit of hot glue, although being honest, I don't think that it was probably necessary to do that because like I said, this adhesive on the back of this cork is really strong. Anyways, we're going to put this on the bottom just to give this, making sure this doesn't scratch the surface when it is set down. That's pretty much what we're doing here. And then I'm just going to clean the plate with some rubbing alcohol just to get off any finger residue, body oils and all of that. Anyways, I have this transfer once again that someone gave to me, and I'm going to fussy cut it and get all of the leaves off because the flower itself fit perfectly on this. So that's what I'm going with. This is really simple, but my thought for this is to be a little like trinket dish or like jewelry holder, and I'm going to place it on the bathroom counter in our guest bathroom for our guests. I don't know if anyone will actually use it for that or not, but that is what I had in mind for it. And this transferred so easily. I literally just used my fingernail. The transfer just attached super great. And this is part of a huge transfer. So even if you do invest in some more expensive transfers, you can cut them apart and do so many projects with them. So just something to keep in mind if you do want to venture out and spend money on that. You can still do it budget friendly, even if you buy, say, like one set that might be a little bit pricier. When you break it down, it is still very budget friendly. Now, because of where I want to use this, I decided to give this a coat of dishwasher safe Mod Podge. Doesn't have to be that one, but because I had that in my stash, I decided to do that, thinking that if I needed to just wipe it out because it got dirty sitting on the counter, that it would be easy to wipe clean. And I think this is really pretty, very simple. I kind of went more neutral for the space that I'm using it in because I don't know what colors I'll end up having in there, but I thought this was so simple, but very pretty. So this is one of those white canvases. You can pick it up from the Dollar Tree. You can also pick them up at Hobby Lobby or other craft stores. The canvas has already been removed from the frame. I have the canvas from a previous DIY that I did, and the wooden frame came from one that my mom had previously done. She had taken the canvas off. So we're going to pair them together, but essentially, if you take the canvas off of the frame, you will have both of these pieces. I am going to paint this with Waverly's paint in truffle. My mom also gave me a bunch of paint. I was so excited. It was like Christmas. She's like, do you want this? She's getting ready to downsize again. My parents are. And so she likes to craft just like me. That's where I get that from. But she just doesn't do it as much. And so I was happy to take these things off of her hands. So I'm just going to paint all the inside, the top, and the outside. I'm going to leave the back free of paint because it's just not necessary. And I'm just going to paint this and give it a good coat. The wood really does absorb it well. And I do go back in with a paper towel to wipe it off. You don't really have to do it. I'm not trying to make it look like a stain. But this way there was no paint clumping and it will dry a little bit faster. So that's just what I decided to do, just to kind of help move it along. But that is not necessary if you don't want to. If you're enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up. Hit that like button. It helps me out so much. It lets YouTube know that you're enjoying it and makes them more likely to share it with others. All right, something else from my stash from the Dollar Tree is their calendars. I'm not sure what year this is from, but it's at least from a couple of years ago. And there's a few that would have worked well for this piece, but I'm going to go with this Our Happy Place with the sunflowers. And I didn't want to do the calendar page by itself because it was too thin. You could also just use like a poster board or put it in just a frame, but I'm going to glue it on top of the canvas. I'm using just this purple school glue. I love the purple, just makes it a little bit easier and it will dry clear. And then I'm just going to attach the calendar to this. Now I was thinking that the glue instead of Mod Podge would allow it to be less wrinkly. I did place this under something heavy while it dried, but it still looked wrinkly. So I'm going to do what I would have done if I just used Mod Podge, and that is lay out a piece of parchment paper so we don't burn our paper, and using my little mini heat press on low heat and smooth it out, and it worked like a charm. If you don't have a mini heat press, you can use a household iron. Just make sure you use low heat and no steam. And I'm just going to go across the whole thing and smooth this piece out. We're going to attach our frame to the canvas or to our calendar page now with just using some hot glue. You can use anything you want. And I'm just going to, I've tried putting the glue and applying the canvas a little bit at a time, like putting the frame on the bottom, and the canvas always ends up bowing up a little bit on me. So this worked out better. I had the piece flat on the table, put the frame down, and it worked perfectly. So I recommend that method. And then I'm just going to use a little cutting tool. I think this is actually from the Dollar Tree as well. And I'm going to trim off the excess. I thought this was easier than trying to trim it beforehand and then having to center it. This worked better. But I quickly was like, why am I doing this without a straight edge? This would be so much easier. And it was. This was a lot easier. And we're just going to trim that off. It also gives a pretty neat finish on the back when you do this. There you go. It was a 2023 calendar, which means I bought it at the end of 2022. So it's time to, move stuff out of my stash by either using it or getting rid of it. But that is it for this piece. It's all done. I just have it laying down. It was kind of easier to show you without having any, I don't know, the lighting was just better this way. But very simple way, the reverse canvas idea, but then adding something to the canvas. If you've seen other people do the reverse canvas projects, but I love how this piece came out. We're going to look at some ways to use this faux leather from the Dollar Tree, although you can pick something like this up at other craft stores, but I had this in my stash, and I do love the texture that this brings to my decor. So I'm going to cover a book. Now this is a book that I previously covered with brown craft paper. I do this a lot, and one nice thing about the brown craft paper is I just kind of tape it on the inside, and it doesn't ruin the integrity of the book at all. So if it's a book that you want to keep and maybe even still read, you can do that. But you can buy a book from the Dollar Tree or from a thrift store, something like that. But I'm going to go ahead and just use our faux leather on top of the brown craft paper. I decided to attach it with some Mod Podge because hot glue sometimes will leave like the raised bumps underneath the material, and I didn't want that. So I went with some Mod Podge. If you want, you can just do this directly on top of the book, but I already had mine kind of wrapped in the brown craft paper. I have several books that I use throughout my home decor like this. So I'm trying to wrap it really tightly as well. I used some other books to kind of weigh it down as I went. And then I was like, okay, do the bottom, do I do the spine? I was just trying to kind of figure out how to do it and keep it nice and tight. And so that's what you see me messing with here. I kind of did this in sections so that it would dry a little bit before I moved on. So you see I put a big book up against the spine of the book to kind of hold it there. And then I didn't wait for it to fully dry before I moved on, but I didn't want it to be moving around on me. I think this would look great for like in a book stack with several with a leather. I only did one, and I'm going to style it with other pieces. But this is an idea I got actually looking at home decor just online on a website, and they were faux book stacks. They weren't even real, with faux leather on them, and they were not cheap. They were like $13 to $20 depending on the size book. So I thought this was a really great idea and a great option. I decided that I did want to fold over the leather on the edges, and I didn't have a lot to work with, so I just kind of took my time. Now I did realize that with the Mod Podge on the edges, it didn't hold as well. So I'm going to go in and use some hot glue to help hold that down. Ultimately, I just decided that that was going to work a little bit better. So I'm going to trim down the excess now that I have a pretty good idea of what I've got, what I'm working with here. And we're going to use our finger protectors so we don't burn ourselves. Definitely would have burnt myself if I hadn't. And I was just using a jar of baking soda that was in my craft room to kind of hold the book open and just go a little bit at a time and work this around. When it came to on the spine, I just trimmed off as close as I could at the top and made it as neat and clean as I could. If you're new, welcome. My name is Leanne. I enjoy sharing budget-friendly DIYs here on this channel. And if you are new, I would love it if you would consider subscribing. Or maybe you're not new and you just see my videos because YouTube recommends them, but you actually haven't subscribed to me. I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel, and that makes sure that YouTube is going to keep showing you my videos, because if you don't subscribe, you're not guaranteed that it's going to show up. So please consider subscribing and then turn on the notification bell. All right, so for a little bit of embellishment, I wanted this to kind of look like a leather journal. So I pulled out a black button. This is from the Dollar Tree. I found a jar of them there. And then I just wanted to tie on some twine. And I'll be honest here, I wasn't patient. I didn't really let the button set. Now, if you wanted this to be more functional, use a stronger glue. Hot glue in the end, it worked fine. I just didn't let it set long enough before I started tying the string, so it popped off. So I'm going to just use this gray twine. I tied a knot and just hot glue that, and then hot glued the button on top of it. That way the knot helped raise the button up a little bit so that I could wrap the twine around it. I decided to wrap it long ways here and just wrap it in, around the book and then around the button a couple times. I decided I needed to make it a lot tighter. But this is really just for decorative purposes. If you wanted to make it more functional, you could do it differently. But I love how this one came out. Let me know what you think about this. This is going to be a great piece to layer in with other books and with other decor pieces to make little vignettes. This was a really fun one for me. All right, so this little Easter sign was from Hobby Lobby, and I got it when it was 90% off. I think that says $2.99, so I paid 29 cents. That sounds about right. That's about what I'm willing to pay for after season clearance from Hobby Lobby. Using my heat gun to soften up the sticker. It was kind of hard to do that with one hand. And then we're going to also clean up the front as well. The bunny word is wood pieces, so I'm just trying to soften up the glue behind it. And we're going to clean this up. You can use something from the Dollar Tree. You can use Dollar General has great clearance pieces as well, along with thrift items and rummage sales, or just old home decor that you don't like anymore. Just destroy it and then turn it into something beautiful. So we're going to just take off that, and I'm going to give it a good sanding. This would have been easier with my electric sander, but then I would have had to go outside in the heat, and I didn't want to. Plus, that wouldn't have really helped. Well, it would have, but it's okay. It wasn't too bad with my finger sander. I'm not trying to sand off all the paint. I just wanted to sand off the words in the print because I figured that would be harder to cover up with paint. Once I get that all cleaned up, we're going to give this a couple of coats of Waverly's chalk paint in the color white. And I was just trying to not let it gob up here on the edges, but you can use obviously any color you want. I'm going kind of more farmhouse neutral with this video. There's some color, and but it's also a little bit more neutral. It could be for any time of year. You do how you like. I'm just here to give you some inspiration. And if you are enjoying this video, please say hello down in the comments. Just let me know you're here. Let me know which one's your favorite. Let me know what DIYs you're in the mood for coming up next, coming soon. Or just leave me an emoji if you don't know what to say. That is fine too. I would just love to hear from you in the comments. So these stamps here are from the Dollar Tree, and I've used the ink from Dollar Tree. And for some projects, I really like it. It does come out a little bit more muted, but I wanted to try some new ink that was a little bit more vibrant. So I picked up this ink pad from Hobby Lobby. It was only $1.99, and I love it. First, I was like, wow, this is so much more vibrant. I will say it dried down almost looking like a soft navy. First here, that was my error. I did not have this problem. After this, I did not press down. So this stamp does end up looking a little bit blurred because I did go over it a second time. But overall, I really like this ink pad. I think I'm going to get more in other colors for other seasons. And it really brought the Dollar Tree stamps to life. I like the Dollar Tree stamps or ink. I like the stamps and I like the ink, but I definitely wanted to try some other ink, and I'm glad I did. And I'm just going to do some different florals all over. I'm kind of wanting it to look kind of like a flower wallpaper, a floral background. So I'm just trying to cover the whole thing, even though we're going to cover up some of this with something else we're going to add on here. I just wanted it to look like a floral scrapbook paper, where there's various designs all over. That's kind of what I was going for. I will say when you use stamps, clean up the stamps right away with a wet paper towel or a baby wipe is what I usually use. While that is drying, I'm going to paint this medallion. This little floral piece is a resin piece poured by my friend. She gifted me some. Love it. Love her. But you can use all different things. But I wanted to do something that didn't have any words on it. And so I thought this was pretty. And I'm using Celery by Waverly. And then we're going to just hot glue this onto the center. And this just makes for a really pretty, just filler piece, shelf sitter. Even though the ink dried a little bit more blue, I don't know if that's because I used the heat gun, although I didn't use the heat gun on all of it. I think it just dried that way. I thought it actually complemented the celery color very well, and this is going to be a nice kind of filler piece. That's it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for being here. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new, and leave me a comment down below letting me know which one was your favorite. Or you just leave me an emoji. That's fine too. Just love knowing who's here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.